In the village hidden in the leaves, our story begins on the night of the winter festival. A young girl, her name Satomi Uchiha. She walked along the forest road as the night sky were filled and adorned with stars, as she wore her white yukata, decorated in red flame, the Uchiha crest embroidered proudly on her back. The young girl was the daughter to the clan leader Fugaku Uchiha and his wife Mikoto, and she was the younger sister to their eldest son, Itachi Uchiha. The young girl had accompanied her family to the festival, but before leaving, she had decided to go and play off in the forest on her own. Unknowingly, her faith would change on that night. As she made her way through the forest path, she would see a young blonde-haired boy sitting under a large tree. He had appeared to have been crying, and he looked as if he had been hurt. The young girl would walk closer to the young boy, as she would tap him on the shoulder, the young boy jolting in fear as he turned to see the young girl facing him. Huh? Who are you? I'm Satomi. Satomi Uchiha. Nice to meet you. You're not mad at me? Why would I be mad? It's just everyone else in the village is always upset with me. I don't even know what I did. I just wanted to join the festival with everyone else, but they kicked me away. That's rude. Why would they do something like that? I don't know. You don't seem like a bad person to me. What's your name? Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Well, it's nice to meet you, Naruto. I was with my family at the festival, but Papa gave me some time to go and play by myself. I found this forest and it overlooks the whole village. I thought it would be a good place to see fireworks. Fireworks? Yeah! You've never seen the fireworks before? Naruto would shake his head. He never really had a chance to enjoy many of the simple things in life. Unknown to him, the hatred that was shown towards him was due to what he had inside. The boy was the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, a beast who less than 4.5 years ago laid waste to the village. As Naruto would slowly take a liking to young Satomi, the two would make small talk and conversation, discussing what they liked and what they didn't like, regular things that kids talk about. As Naruto would look at Satomi more and more, he couldn't help but be enamored at her beauty, with her dark hair and her eyes that seemed to shine like the night sky itself as she was bathed in the moonlight. He couldn't help but feel as if he were in the presence of an angel, not just in terms of her looks, but in terms of the kindness that she had shown him. No one else had ever been as kind to Naruto the way she had been. Not even the children in the orphanage paid him much mind. Soon as they were lost in conversation, the sky would start to be lit with fireworks. As the two watched in enjoyment, Naruto in awe of what he was seeing, as the bright lights flashed over the entire village. Both he and Satomi would be looking on in complete and utter shock and awe. neither one knowing that this would be the first of many moments between the two. As the fireworks soon began to die down, Satomi could hear the voice of her brother calling out to her, telling her that it was time to go home. As Satomi got up to leave, she would wave goodbye to Naruto, Naruto waving goodbye as well. As the young girl rejoined her older brother, he asked what had made her so happy, and she had explained that she had made a friend. Itachi very pleased with this. As Naruto got up to go back to his home, he wondered if he would ever see her, or if this were all just a mere dream. Some time would pass, and Naruto would find himself back at the tree once again, just minding his own business and keeping to himself, as he had once again been chased out of the village by the villagers. Without any warning, he would find himself being tapped on the shoulder, Naruto turning around quickly to see if there was someone else trying to attack him. But instead, he would be shocked to see that it was the young girl from before. "It's... You're here again?" "Yeah, silly. Why wouldn't I be? Never mind. It's nice to see you again." The two would reconverse with one another, Satomi explaining that she were just out here in the forest, playing and keeping to herself as she had time before dinner. Naruto would be happy to see that Satomi had come here once again. The two just playing around and enjoying their time with one another in the private forest area, not too far from the Hokage monuments that oversaw the whole village. The two would be lost in the thrills of playtime and merriment. As soon the sun would set and Satomi would know that it was time for dinner, she would bid Naruto farewell before leaving once again, the two agreeing to make this their regular meeting spot. And over the next few years, that was their regular routine with one another. It would be their own hideaway from the rest of the world. For Naruto, he treasured these meetings, for they were the only time that he truly felt normal, that he truly felt like there was someone out there in the world who cared for him. They would either spend their time playing amongst the trees or reading various texts from books that Satomi enjoyed reading. Naruto didn't care too much for reading, but whenever Satomi read, to listen to her voice, he would gladly sit in attention. Over time, Satomi would feel as if Naruto should have met with her family, and one day she would invite him to dinner. As the sun was setting and the two were making their way through the village, Satomi would meet with her older brother Itachi, who would greet the young Naruto. He had known of Naruto through talks of the village, and while he knew who Naruto truly was, he did not harbor any ill will against Naruto, for he was not like those of the village. He understood that Naruto were not the nine-tailed fox, but merely the jailer of the nine-tailed fox, and he held him in high regard. As the three made their way through the village, they would get many stares, Naruto becoming immensely uncomfortable, Satomi holding his hand the whole time to assure him that it would be okay. Any glares that were given towards them were quickly shot down, as the elder Uchiha would send out an aura of his own, making it very clear that no one would harm the children while he were around. He would not tolerate it from anyone. And with that, their glares would return back to what they were doing as quickly as they had been drawn to the young boy, as they would quickly make their way to the Uchiha compound, and soon to the residence of the main Uchiha family. Naruto would be greeted at the front door by an older woman with long dark hair, the woman stopping and pausing for a moment as she couldn't believe who she was seeing. The young boy that she had seen in the hospital all those years ago. The child of her late friend. She had to hold back a tear for a brief moment. Just knowing that the boy were alive and well brought her much joy. As she quickly composed herself and greeted young Naruto, asking if he would be joining them for dinner, he politely said yes. As an extra spot would be made for Naruto, soon they would be greeted by the head of the Uchiha clan himself, Fugaku Uchiha. As Fugaku would be shocked to see that they were having a guest, and even more shocked that it would be Naruto of all people. Still, he would kindly welcome Naruto to his home, as Naruto and Satomi would explain how they met, and how they spent their time playing together in the forest. Fugaku would be happy to see that young Naruto had made a friend, and that it was in his daughter no less. Fugaku were well aware of Naruto's origin and lineage, and while he was not permitted to say anything, he felt as though this could be of benefit. As dinner was enjoyed by the five, Fugaku would tease Satomi and Naruto a little, joking about how the two of them were probably dating. The two of them very quick to deny it and yell out loud as children are prone to do. However, Fugaku would look at Naruto seriously and ask him one thing. He would ask the young boy if he would always look after Satomi, to always be there for her in her time of need. Naruto, without hesitation, would say yes, not wanting to ever leave his friend behind. Being pleased with that answer, Naruto would bid them farewell as it was getting late and he knew he needed to walk home. Itachi would agree to walk home with Naruto to make sure he got back safely, Fugaku being more than aware of how the village treated the young boy. He did not want him to be harmed in any way. Itachi made sure of it, and the two walked home without incident, Naruto arriving to his apartment safely. This would become the routine for a while, Naruto being invited to dinners at the Uchiha family household, becoming closer with the rest of the main family. It felt as if Naruto were finally gaining what he had always wanted. It seemed as if these times of peace would last forever. But unfortunately, as we all know with this story, that time of peace and happiness would quickly be brought to an end as quickly as it had arrived. It would start with one day in particular. The students had been released from the academy. Satomi was scolding Naruto for oversleeping in class as always, but Naruto didn't really pay too much attention to Iruka-sensei and whatever he had to say. Naruto always being the one to either fall asleep or skip class, along with Shikamaru and Choji and Kiba, often getting yelled at by the teachers and the staff constantly. The two would stop at the forest where they always stopped to play, but for some reason they had overstayed a lot longer than they intended to. For whatever reason, they felt compelled to stay in the forest a lot longer. Unknown to the two, they had been placed under a subtle genjutsu, inducing them to stay in the forest and to not come to the Uchiha compound. They would never be none the wiser though, but soon Satomi would realize that she needed to hurry home, Naruto agreeing to accompany her and explain why they were late. As the two would be running, they would be unaware of what would await them. Come on, Naruto. I gotta hurry up and get home or I'm gonna be in big trouble. I know. I'm sorry. It's my fault that we're late. You know what? It probably is your fault. You're always playing around too much. You should pay attention in school more or you'll always be in trouble. It's not my fault. Iruka-sensei is just so boring. How are you ever gonna be Hokage if you never pay attention in class? Come on. I'll be okay. Just go on without me. I'll be Hokage someday. Oh. Naruto would pass out from exhaustion from running non-stop, and Satomi would have to run back to drag him along, as he would be her only way of avoiding trouble with her family. As the two made it to the Uchiha compound, entering into the entrance completely out of breath, Satomi would stop to catch herself, while Naruto would walk over to a bush feeling as if he were about to throw up. Although what he was going to see, it would be far worse. As Naruto walked over to the bushes, he could see a corpse laying in front of him. Without word, he would just vomit, releasing everything that he held inside. Satomi asking if he were okay. Naruto's eyes would be pale white. He would feel as if he had seen a ghost. Not wanting Satomi to see what had happened, he would tell her that they needed to go find their parents immediately. Satomi wondering what Naruto meant, the two of them would just run through the compound. Naruto telling her to keep her head down and to not look around and see what were happening around them. Unknown to her, the bodies of her family member and their clansmen were strewn throughout the streets. As a thick smell of blood entered the air, the two simply ran, keeping their eyes as covered as much as possible. Satomi starting to become worried as the two would continue to run, until eventually they made it to her home. Running through the doors, Naruto and Satomi would yell out to Fugaku and Mikoto, yelling to the elder Uchiha for what they had seen, for the danger that they felt around them. As they would head to the main room, Satomi and Naruto looking through the darkness and yelling for her parents once again. Their voices would be cut shut, as they could see on the ground would lay a dead Fugaku and his wife Mikoto. Mom? Dad? Mom? Mr. Fugaku, what happened? As they would look up, they would see on the other side of the room would be none other than Itachi Uchiha. His eyes emblazoned with the Sharingan. Itachi, what happened to Mom and to Dad? Foolish little sister. What? You are truly naive, are you not? Do you not understand what is happening around you? Mother and father are dead, and I am the one who killed them. What? You wouldn't do that. You don't play like that, Itachi. You love Mom. You love Dad. You wouldn't do this. But I have. They were in my way, Satomi. You were all in my way. In your way? What are you talking about? Do you not understand? I needed the power. I needed to test myself, to test my limits. For so long, I have tried to be the good elder brother that you believe in so much. while you get to play around with your friends without a care in the world. Do you know what I have had to endure? I, the black sheep of my family, I can no longer tolerate their weakness and their foolishness. So I killed them. I murdered them. I slaughtered them all, like the worthless animals that they are. Satomi would begin to cry, not believing the words that had been spoken to her. Naruto was also awestruck, in sadness, in anger, in fear. Satomi, however, as her mind were beginning to break, would walk closer to Itachi, her arms stretched out wide, forcing a smile onto her face, attempting to give her brother a hug like she always used to, not wanting to believe that her brother could do something so heinous. However, those hopes would be dashed away as a shuriken would be thrown past her face, cutting her cheek and some of her hair. As Naruto would see this, his eyes would begin to glow. If you don't want to die, I wouldn't come any closer, Satomi. Itachi? Please, don't do this. If you are going to be as naive as mother and father, then you will die as well. Shut up! Naruto? You did this to your own family. You monster! And what would you know about family? You, the pathetic orphan who never had one. You're just a no-good, talentless shinobi with no mommy or daddy. I said shut up! Naruto's body would start to be enveloped in a dark and red aura, his eyes becoming feral, the whisker-like marks on his face starting to become darker, his fingernails starting to grow into claws. It seemed faint, but it looked as if the aura of a fox were starting to emit itself all around Naruto. As his teeth began to grow, he would look up to Itachi, tears streaming down his face as he yelled and raged. Do you hate me, Naruto? I'll kill you! Naruto would lunge himself straight at Itachi, yelling out a feral scream. It would emit such power that it would blow a hole through the wall, exiting outside to the main road, Satomi running after Naruto and their older brother. As Naruto would run and lunge at Itachi, who would effortlessly dodge and evade, Naruto would continue to attack over and over, throwing every punch and kick that he had possible. Some of the aftershocks being strong enough to knock over some of the poles around the buildings, as Naruto would unleash his rage and everything that he had towards Itachi. Satomi yelling for Naruto to stop, as Itachi would pull his blade from his back. Satomi would look to her brother. No. Don't. Itachi. Don't do it. Itachi. Don't. Itachi would effortlessly slam Naruto back to the ground, as Naruto's eyes were still filled with rage. Itachi would bring his katana straight down to Naruto, stabbing him directly in the gut. As Naruto would yell out in pain, the scream of an animal that had been wounded. It would echo all throughout the forest in the land of fire for miles. The sound was deafening and eerily. The red within Naruto's eyes would begin to fade, and they would turn back into their shade of blue, as Naruto's eyes would slowly begin to drift away. Itachi had made sure not to stab Naruto's vitals, but did enough damage to make sure Naruto wouldn't get up anytime soon. As a pool of blood would begin to form around Naruto's body, Satomi walking over to Naruto, seeing the blood pour from his wound. Her eyes would begin to sting as she could feel the change coming within her. There could be no mistaking what had happened, no mistaking what had been done. Satomi would look back up to her brother, except now her eyes would no longer be filled with love, or with concern, or even with fear. Her eyes would be filled with pure and utter hatred. As she looked back up, Itachi would look into her eyes. I see. So you possess it as well. Shut up. This is your own fault, Satomi. If you weren't so weak, maybe Mom and Dad would still be alive. I said, shut up. Maybe I wouldn't have had to slaughter Grandma and Grandpa. I said, shut up. Even now, you can't even protect Naruto. I said, shut up. Satomi would lunge at Itachi as well, brandishing a kunai that she had picked up from the ground. She would attempt to fight her older brother. Almost with no hesitation, she would weave the hand signs for the fireball jutsu, mustering everything she could to try to incinerate her older brother straight to ash. Her heart had been blackened, filled with nothing but vengeance and with rage. Her heart had been scorned, and now the only thing that could quench her ever-growing inferno was the blood of her older brother. Itachi would peer right into her eyes, as his eyes would begin to morph into the Mangekyo Sharingan. His sister would be placed under a genjutsu, as she would be forced to rewatch and relive the massacre over and over again, until eventually her mind was completely broken, as she would fall to her knees in a complete and utter daze, soon laying right next to Naruto. She would look up to her brother, as the only thing that she could utter from her mouth was, I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. Itachi would look down upon her, as he would tell her that among the Uchiha, there are a few who possess the abilities of the Mangekyo, and that he spared her life only because she had such potential. Nothing more, nothing less. As he were about to leave, he would leave her with these final words: that if she truly wanted to avenge the clan, then she must harden her heart, and that she must manifest her hatred, and when she possessed the same eyes as him, to come back and face him again, or she could cling to a pathetic and wretched life. And with that, Itachi would vanish into the night, leaving the village and becoming a wanted criminal. As soon, the third Hokage and his elite guard of Anbu Black Ops would now arrive onto the scene, only to see the horror that had befallen them. Among his Anbu, a silver-haired Anbu Black Ops member would come across the bodies of Naruto and Satomi, the third Hokage telling him to take the two to the ER to be placed on 24-hour surveillance by he himself personally, and that he would arrive later to check on them, as now they had to deal with the Uchiha massacre. A few days later, the two would awaken in the ER. Satomi would not have been asleep for as long as Naruto. Naruto needing more time to recover his stamina, as his body had taken not too long to heal, but to recover mentally from everything that they had been through. Soon, once the two were up and about, they would be placed in the same room with one another. Satomi seeing Naruto alive and well, the two would rush to one another immediately in a hug. A hug that didn't seem to end, and no one planned to stop them. For everything that they had been through, they were all that each other had now. Soon they would be sitting face to face with the third Hokage, who would get their first-hand reports as to what had happened. Satomi and Naruto each explaining in their own ways what they had seen and heard and what they had gone through, thus confirming everything that had happened. With that, decisions now had to be made. While Satomi could stay in the Uchiha compound, she could have the offer to live in her own residency like Naruto. But she would choose to stay in the home that her family had built. While it would have to be cleaned out, she would be able to return within a week. But Satomi would have a request of her own. She would request that Naruto be allowed to live on the Uchiha compound residency as well. This shocking Lord Third, although Satomi would explain that she didn't feel as if she could be alone at the moment, and she would just feel comfortable knowing that Naruto were there by her side. They had plenty of empty residencies now, so Naruto could stay in one of them if he so wished. As the third Hokage pondered this request, Naruto would agree, stating that he had no real reason to stay in the main part of the village anyway, and being farther away would probably be for the best, since he wasn't liked by anyone in particular. While the third Hokage was saddened at this, he knew that this would probably be the best outcome. And with that, Naruto's things were packed, and a week later, he would arrive to the Uchiha compound, where an apartment had been cleaned out and made ready just for him. Many of the villagers were happy at the news of Naruto being sent farther away to the outskirts of the village, keeping them safe from the demon child. With Naruto now moved into the Uchiha compound, an Anbu guard would be placed to do regular rounds and checkups to make sure that the children were alright. With that, Naruto and Satomi would now be on their own. The first few days, it seemed as if time had stood still. Satomi did not come out of her home, and Naruto did not come out of his. After another week had passed or so, Naruto would visit Satomi at her home. As he would knock on the door, it would just swing open, and Naruto would make his way in. As he would walk through the halls, remembering everything that happened, he would soon find Satomi's bedroom. Wanting to give her privacy, he would just sit in front of the door, but he would knock and make his presence known. As Satomi would slowly get out of bed, she would sit on the other side, the two not speaking for a while or saying a word, until eventually nightfall would come and no words had been spoken. Naruto wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't sure what to do now. What could he do? He only knew that his friend was struggling, and that if his friend were in need, he had to help in any way that he could. He wouldn't say much, but what he would say would be more than impactful. He would tell Satomi that whatever she chose to do, he would always be on her side. That as much as he wanted to be Hokage, that it was his dream, his friends were more important to him than that. If she wanted to get revenge on Itachi, he would help her, as he had his own debt to settle with him as well. He would follow her to the ends of the earth. He would never abandon her. He would always stand by her side until the end. Satomi, hearing these words, they would truly touch her heart. As now, there were only two things in her life that mattered to her: getting revenge on Itachi and Naruto. Those were the only two forces that could drive her forward. As the two would slowly stand up and Satomi would open the door, she would throw her arms around Naruto in a hug. The two now being closer than ever before, bonded by the same pain, knowing now that they were all that the other one had in this life. Satomi would also make a vow that she would get revenge on Itachi, that she would not rest until she did so. But when it was over, she would stand by Naruto's side. She would help Naruto in his goal. She would not rest until Naruto became Hokage. And when he did, she would be there to stand next to him. As the two swore on their promises, from then on, their new mission had begun. The next years of their lives, whatever they didn't spend time doing in school, they spent their time training and studying. Satomi's demeanor had changed completely. She was no longer the lovable and warm-spirited girl that she used to be. What she had become was something more stoic, more serious. Even Naruto and his antics were not tolerated as much as they were used to. Satomi became more of a taskmaster than ever before, cracking down on Naruto whenever he was slacking off. Of course, trying to change Naruto and turn him around completely would be easier said than done. Up until now in the academy, Naruto was a complete and utter dead last, and not very much had been changed about that. But still though, forcing Naruto to study and prepare for tests was a stepping stone, to say the least. Satomi didn't allow Naruto to skip class or play pranks as much either, as she would always reinforce to him the seriousness of their situation. When it came to things like chakra control and studying, Naruto drastically improved. While his chakra control was still piss poor, it was a lot more decent. He went from dead last to, at the very least, in the middle of the pack. Satomi would drill all of the knowledge into Naruto constantly, as well as keeping up with her own studies. Whenever they had spare time, they would train, practice, whether it were cold, hot, rainy, whether it were early in the morning to late at night. The two would train with one another day by day, growing stronger and stronger with each passing time. Satomi would teach Naruto many of the skills that she had learned, even including the Shuriken Jutsu, making Naruto a lot more proficient and a lot more accurate in his Shuriken throwing, until eventually, while Satomi could hit a perfect 10 out of 10, Naruto had improved drastically from only hitting a 1 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10, and eventually getting to an 8 out of 10 on most of all Shuriken practice tests. Iruka could see the change that had occurred in Naruto, and as he had been briefed on the situation with the Uchiha, and learning that his student was there, he tried his best to be closer to Naruto than before. Naruto's attitude and demeanor did not change completely. He was still able to find joys in life, although he had not always spent all of his time merely doing pranks. Now he had a much more serious reason to live, a goal. Every day he would be reminded of what had happened to him, how Itachi had effortlessly thrown him around and stabbed him in the gut. He knew now that the world of the shinobi was serious, seeing firsthand how dangerous it could be, and he knew better than to waste his time. As the 4 years would pass, the two would grow stronger and stronger, honing their skills and practicing in every way, shape, and form, until eventually they were skilled enough to stand on their own. While Naruto had not improved enough to be the top of his class, he had moved up dramatically from being dead last to 7th best among the boys, the Rookie of the Year going to none other than Kiba Inuzuka, who had seen himself as the top dog of the academy, always making sure to remind everyone who was superior, especially Naruto, who had taken to being his rival in a way. Satomi, on the other hand, did not earn any good favors among her fellow kunoichi. Outside of Hinata, who were kind and pleasant to her, there were the other ones who always viewed her as a threat, especially when it came to stealing the attention of the other boys in class. And this ire would be brought on by none other than the 2nd place runner-up of the kunoichi, that being Sakura Haruno, who spared no expense in stating her ill will towards the young Uchiha girl, the two butting heads constantly, as Sakura could never see what anyone saw in her anyway. Sakura's attitude and demeanor towards Satomi did not rub off well with Naruto. Naruto, in fact, coming to loathe the pink-haired girl, and finding her to be more annoying than anything else. However, Satomi would easily ignore her and many of the other girls that flocked her path, often with a quick whip before returning back to her book. As the time would pass and it would be ready for the final exam, the Genin would take their tests, and Naruto would pass with almost flying colors on all the tests except for one. That would be the clone jutsu. Despite his much improved chakra control, Naruto's clones were still pathetic, and there was not much else that he could do about it. While Iruka wanted to pass him for all the good work that he had done, there was one more among the staff who did not feel the same way, that being Mizuki, who would quickly point out that Naruto had once again failed and they could not hand out a participation trophy. And so Naruto would be failed once again, this time however deeply angered, knowing full well that he had given it his all. He had seen the growth and the improvements that he had made. He, along with Satomi, they had worked and tried so hard to get to where they had needed to be. However, as Naruto were leaving, Mizuki would call him over to the other side of the hall where no one could hear them. Giving a fake smile, he would comfort Naruto, telling him that he understood the hard work that he had put in, and that if he really wanted to pass, there was a way for him to do so. He would tell him of a special scroll hidden in the Hokage's office, remarking that all Naruto needed to do was steal that scroll and bring it to him in a secret location, and that if they did so, then he could be passed right there on the spot. Naruto would find this a bit odd, but would still look forward to the opportunity. As the two would part ways, he would find his neck being yanked by Satomi, Naruto asking her why she were being so forceful. She would ask if Naruto were really going to fall for something so stupid. As Naruto would ask what she were talking about, Satomi would explain that it was obviously a trick, and that no teacher would ask a student from the academy to do something so reckless, especially if it meant that it could potentially lead Naruto in trouble. Naruto would ponder this for a moment, before realizing just how foolish he had been. He would hit his own head multiple times for believing that he could have been tricked. Satomi would be angered at the Chunin teacher for trying to deceive Naruto, believing that for him to do so, he harbored ill will against Naruto for whatever reason. However, she would decide that they could turn this to their advantage. With that, they would leave the academy, as they had their own plans to spring into action. Later on that evening, a distress call would be sent out. A distress call stating that the scroll of sealing had been stolen, and that it had been by Naruto. However, as the patrol had been sent out, Mizuki would be the only one to know, and his first goal would be to find Naruto, to take the scroll and then kill the demon brat. However, unknown to Mizuki, a trap had been sprung long before now. The two academy students had gone to the third Hokage and explained their situation to him, telling him everything that had happened, believing that they could use this to their advantage. The third Hokage would be shocked at the news, but would be proud of them for telling him the truth. Satomi would then use her shrewdness to ask for a reward. The third Hokage being a bit perplexed, but understandably, thinking that for information like this, a reward would be in order. They would require that each one be given 2 jutsu. The third Hokage wondering what jutsu they wanted to know in particular. After doing some studying and some research, Naruto had learned a while ago that he had the affinity for wind. However, he didn't know wind-style ninjutsu. Also, he would ask if there were a clone jutsu that could work best for him, stating that the academy clone jutsu he couldn't perform no matter how hard he tried. The third Hokage quickly realizing that Naruto's inability to use the clone jutsu came from the fact that he wore the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. Deciding that if he were going to go on in his role as a shinobi, he would need to learn the truth. He would tell the two to have a seat. As long ago, when Naruto had nearly been killed by Itachi, Satomi had remarked about how Naruto had changed, about how a weird aura had enveloped him. However, the third Hokage said that he would not tell them the origin of such power until they had at least become genin. Deciding that now would be as good of a time as any, he would tell Naruto the truth. The truth as to who he truly was. That he was indeed the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox. This news shocking Naruto, as he had no way of knowing that he would actually be its host. Satomi would be surprised by the news as well, but still she would comfort Naruto through the ordeal, assuring him that he were not the nine-tailed fox, just merely the thing that hosted him, and that no fox would change how she thought of him. The third Hokage would be pleased to see the development between the two, knowing that Naruto had truly made a genuine friend, and it was thanks to this friend that Naruto had not lost his spirit. With that, the third Hokage would pull out the Scroll of Sealing from its original hiding spot, as he would look through and comb for jutsu for them to learn. This jutsu, however, would be one for Naruto and one for Satomi, as well as pulling out two more scrolls that he had along his desk. After writing down the formulas, he would put the Scroll of Sealing back into its place, and he would tell them that the first scroll that he was giving each of them would need to be burned immediately after they had learned it, and that there would be no exceptions. The two taking this to heart, they would take their first scrolls. For Naruto, it would be the steps and formula for the Shadow Clone Jutsu. And for Satomi, it would be the steps needed for the Fire Style Fire Dragon Jutsu, one of the most potent and powerful fire techniques in the village hidden in the leaves. While under normal circumstances, it would be dangerous to give them such jutsu, he believed that in this case, it would prove to be useful. The second jutsus that he would give each one of them would be regular jutsu that they could add to their arsenal, and they were more common knowledge. For Satomi, he would give her the Fire Style Fire Clone Jutsu, since it was the strong affinity and nature for the Uchiha. And for Naruto, he would give him the Wind Style Wind Bullet Jutsu. With that, he would allow the two to take their rewards. And he would tell Naruto that if he could master the Shadow Clone Jutsu by the end of the week, he would be allowed to pass and be made a genin. With that, Naruto and Satomi would thank the third Hokage. While Mizuki would be in the forest, looking for the meeting spot, he would see Naruto along with the scroll. As he would look to him, he would kindly walk over to the boy and tell him to hand over the scroll. However, Naruto would simply grin before transforming into a silver-haired Jonin with his headband covering one of his eyes. Mizuki, realizing what had happened and that he had been tricked, would try to run away, but there would be no escape. As Naruto and Satomi would get to work, Naruto only having a week to train and master the jutsu, it would take him a lot less time than it originally thought. And well within 2 days, Naruto had gotten the hang of the Shadow Clone Jutsu, Satomi remarking that they were actually solid clones instead of mere illusions, Naruto just being happy to actually have a clone jutsu of his own. With that, the two would also work on learning the other jutsu that they had acquired. The Fire Dragon Jutsu wouldn't be hard in terms of learning the hand signs, but generating the chakra needed to create the Fire Dragon itself would prove to be rather difficult. Although the Fire Clone Jutsu would come in handy, Satomi being able to make up to 25 fire clones, as well as learning another useful technique for the clones as well, that whenever they were destroyed, they would detonate almost like a bomb on contact. This was made evident from their sparring sessions, when Naruto's shadow clones would think they had gotten the better of Satomi, only for the Satomi clones to blow up and take the shadow clone along with them, so it proved to be an even fight all the way around. With Naruto also getting time to learn the Wind Bullet Jutsu, soon they would return to Lord Third to show off what they had learned. being impressed with the two shinobi. Iruka Sensei, who was also in attendance, would give Naruto his headband, congratulating him on his newfound success and stating that he was now an official genin of the village hidden in the leaves. Satomi would grin as she were proud of Naruto and how far they had come, but still knew that they had to go even farther. But for tonight, she would decide to let loose a little, as Naruto would yell that the only thing he wanted to do now was have a big bowl of Ichiraku ramen, pork miso with extra helpings. While Satomi was not the biggest fan of ramen, she did like the tomato-flavored ramen. As the two of them would bid the third Hokage and Iruka farewell. Iruka would wonder if the two were going to be alright. Lord Third, as he would smoke from his pipe, would reassure Iruka, stating that as long as they had one another, there was nothing that they couldn't accomplish. As the two would walk off, their story was now just at its beginning.